previous hour, with the political landscape in South Africa having changed after the Constitutional Court ruled yesterday that independent candidates can now stand for both national and provincial elections without being affiliated to any political party. We continue our discussion, and we are joined now by policy analyst and researcher from Election Monitoring Network, Nkosikulule Nyembezi. Good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Welcome to my studio.
Yeah, I know. It's good. We're visiting everybody's houses during the show, so it's nice to see an inside glimpse into your life. But we want to get an inside glimpse into your mind now, because this ruling yesterday, I'm dying to hear your opinion about this decision. What are you thinking?
It's a victory for South Africa. It's a victory for our constitutional democracy, because we've always said power to the people. This now opens up the space for South African citizens to be able to get a broader representation as they should in terms of the constitution.
So let's actually look at the origins of elections. I mean, do you think that this was an oversight? Why is it that all along independent candidates were never ever able to contest our general elections or the elections in South Africa?
It's because in the past, in the first two elections, particularly the first elections after the adoption of the 1996 Constitution, the mandate was placed upon Parliament to create an enabling framework for people to be able to enjoy election and to represent the public as independent candidates. So we went through a transition from an interim constitution to a new constitution in 1996. But now we see on hindsight that because political parties had vested interest in trying to keep away independent candidates, so they prolonged the process up to this point. We were supposed to have had independent candidates a long time ago, especially because we've seen that at local government level, the system works.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people are asking, why is this such a game changer? I mean, how much of a difference can an independent candidate actually make when you're going up against the bigger giants that are already well established? They have things in place. They have somewhat of a monopoly over the election system here in South Africa. I'm not talking about one party. I'm talking about, in general, the parties that have been there for a while. How is this independent candidate going to come in and stand up against them? Perhaps you can give us more of an understanding into this now.
Well, the issue about election is about freedom of expression and exercising free will, making a political choice. A candidate who contests elections used an election manifesto. They put into the political agenda items which political parties might choose conveniently to overlook. They contest and get a platform to be heard by an audience who wouldn't necessarily hear them because now they are candidates. So at a first level, those candidates influence the debate that is taking place in terms of how to make that preference. But again, we move on to say, if you get elected into a legislative body, then there are some policies and some platforms where it's not just the ruling party or the majority party that must occupy. We've seen portfolios like SCOPA. We have seen some portfolio committees that can be chaired by somebody from another party. So independent candidates can play a role, even perhaps to becoming a speaker and a deputy speaker, because of how the legislature must be run. And so you continue to have representation in terms of a wide variety of political views that political party would necessarily not be prioritizing for one reason or the other. So the space is there.
Yeah, the space is there, but now it's about ironing out the details, because this is really just the start of a long process going forward, because, there are obviously the loopholes. We spoke to the New Nation movement that are basically saying this is a victory, but it's the next step that's the important step. And for them, they also don't know necessarily, where we go. This is where we open up the conversation, and we try and see how best this announcement can actually be used in the electoral system. What would you advise now? I mean, what is the next step? Where do we go with this big announcement to actually bring in real change?
Yes, that's something important because, first of all, it's simple because to get a seat in parliament, as we've seen in the 2019 elections, you need roughly about 39,000 votes. In an era when now we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have followers and influencers, it's going to be easy to communicate your platform, your election manifesto to the public out there such that they can identify with what we are saying and be able to vote for you. And if you can get just under 40,000 votes, then you will be in parliament. We have seen a form of independent candidacy in our electoral system. People like Patricia Delil, people like Temba Koti, people like Raj Bansi and the likes, they were forced to form political parties to be in parliament just because the system wouldn't allow them to stand as candidates. But in general, we know in terms of the surveys, nobody even recognized, could say what is the name of the party that these individuals were representing, because they only knew the face. So it's going to work out. And again, we also know that in terms of what needs to happen now, this 24 months is a tick that is going to be very interesting because we are working in changing times. Like I was saying, technology is increasingly becoming part of our electoral system. With the 2000s, the Z generations, the new millenniums, it's going to be quite easy using technology to be able to navigate a ballot paper that may be longer just because you've got individuals who are there. So we bank on that because now technology comes in and the profile of voters who will be voting in the next elections are going to be able to deal with that situation because the ballot paper is going to be longer. So what we need to do now, Parliament must just amend the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the amendment will be similar, the outcome will be similar to what we are seeing at municipal level, where you do not have to have political party membership in order to contest for a seat.
I mean, you talk about having 40,000 votes, that'll see you getting in. But, you know, how much of a difference can you make as an independent candidate? And I think that's what we need to put out there. I mean, if I gave the example, if I come in and I get a lot of votes, how do I honestly have a voice against the much bigger parties that are in there? How do the seat allocations work? How would the election of a president work? How do these things work now? How will it all change?
It will all change because we have seen it at municipal level. First of all, it will going to be good for democracy because we can anticipate an increase in the number of people who go out and vote. In the past, we have seen a decrease in the number of people who are interested to go out and vote because they feel that political parties do not represent what their aspirations are. They are not aligned in terms of what they want. So when we have an independent candidate, that is going to increase the number, we hope. We have seen also within parties, people defecting in the last municipal elections. We have seen independent candidates coming out of the mainstream political parties just because the people are discontent that the branches nominate somebody, then the central system at the head office of a political party rearranges the list and put a preference to candidates who were not favored at a local level. So we hope that we're going to circumvent such things now, neutralize that space just because of this system. But when you get into parliament, we've seen at municipal level that some political parties or independents, they become powerful in a case where none of the major parties get a majority of votes. Now they don't get more than 51%. So in that case, you need to form alliances. Increasingly in the last municipal elections, we have seen alliances amongst political parties that didn't necessarily work because still the political party system straight-jacketed and suffocated that space. So when we have independent candidates now, those municipalities and those alliances, coalitions are likely to work. And of course, as I've said earlier on, independent candidates are still likely to put in the radar screen issues that political parties might have chosen to overlook. So the influence is there, particularly when there is no party that gets more than 51% in a legislature.
Yeah. So I mean, we're in for interesting times, aren't we? Because this is, now I think you're giving us a better understanding of how much this really is going to affect political parties and affect the voting system. Because, there's a lot of despondency among South Africans feeling, I go and I stand in front of the ballot paper and nobody speaks for me. Nobody's my voice. And I don't want to give my vote to a party that I don't believe in. I may like its leader, but its leader, how are they making decisions when they're actually answerable to the party? So, these are things that obviously now we need to look forward to going into our next elections. And that's my question to you very quickly. They've said 24 months now, it must be remedied, the Electoral Act. But we have in 2021, the local government elections. What's going to change? Will anything change?
At local government level, nothing is going to change because the system exists as it should.
Okay.
But we are going to gravitate or graduate what we see at municipal level into national level. So it will be interesting because now perhaps we will no longer see communities like Matatiele, like Vunani, like Merafong, where communities want this and the political party decides to do something else. That is now an example with respect to the borders of the province and where a municipality belongs, either in this province or the other. What caused a swedge there was because the communities wanted something else and the political parties voted for something else. Now we got new political parties like the AMC emerging. So all I'm saying is that in a space where you get a pressure like that, candidates are going to be able to dissipate that pressure. In a way, we have more choices. We can vote for someone who will take on the mandate that we give them during any time of democracy. So in other words, we are likely to see people hanging on to democracy and holding elected representatives accountable, not just during election year, but throughout the term of their mandate.
Yeah. All right. Well, we look forward to that. So, one thing, as you have again stipulated, it's not really going to be affecting these local government elections coming up in 2021. But when we move into those national elections and the provincial elections, that's where we're going to see a difference. And I think reams and reams of papers printed with different faces on them. One can only imagine looking for that preferred face. It's going to be a much longer process going forward. Would you agree with that one as well?
Yes, except that we are moving digital. In all likelihood, we will be voting digitally. That ballot paper is going to be digital because all the millennials, particularly children born after 2000, we call them Mama 2000, they are the profile of the next voter. I did like to say that we are also facing a coronavirus that is showing us that the elder population is likely to be affected. So the long and short of it is that it looks like in the next national and provincial election, the candidate is going to be seeking support from a younger generation that is used to technology, and we are likely to go to survive and even enjoy the system that we are going to be using, which might not be a paper ballot paper, but a digital system.
All right, we'll leave it there. Nkosi Kulule Nyembezi, thank you so much for talking to us. He's a policy analyst and researcher from the Election Monitoring Network, talking about yesterday's Constitutional Court judgment allowing independent candidates to now stand for both national and provincial elections. All right, just gone 7:30. Let's get our latest news headlines. Sakina, I'll hand this to you.